Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Crypto Events Announcements. My name is Eugene Romanenko. I'm your crypto machine. Please help me welcome my today's upcoming VIP guest. He is Malcolm Tan. He's the chairman of Gravitas International. He is broadcasting right now from Singapore, our lovely Singapore, and he also will be the distinguished speaker at least two conferences in the CIS area, as I know. The first, the ChainPoint 19 conference, hosted by Vigan Arushanyan and Armenian Blockchain Association NOR team in Yerevan, Crypto Armenia in October 14 and 15. And the next one is Blockchain Live Europe Conference hosted by Sergey Khitrov and Listen Help team in Moscow, Russia in October 16 and 17. Malcolm, it's a great pleasure for us to have you on the interview.
Thank you. Thank you, Eugene.
Could you please give us a bit intro for those guys who don't know who you are and what you do? Yeah, they exist in this world. Okay. Tell about yourself and what are you working on in the industry right now?
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Malcolm. I am doing several things, but most people know me as a crypto lawyer. I am a practicing lawyer from Singapore. I have my own firm here in Singapore. And the company that most people know me for would be Gravitas International, which is an international full-service ICO, IEO, STO advisory company. We have worked on close to 60 projects to date. We have started doing this about 2 years ago, and we have over 10 projects that we represented in the for Russian clients. We have done about 20 plus for European clients, about 10 Korean clients, and we have Japanese, Chinese, Taiwanese, etc. kinds of clients as well. So we're international full service firm. And in addition to that, we are also involved in some of our projects where we have an equity position, and we are also setting up a VC fund right now, a 100 million fund to invest into deep tech and into some blockchain companies. So a lot of people would know me for also my book. I wrote a book on how to ITO in Singapore. And we have already done a second edition because the Singapore laws, of course, have changed along with the rest of the world. We are coming up with a Payment Services Act that's going to be in effect within the next 6 months in Singapore. And with more and more companies coming to Singapore to do the registrations, we are also getting involved in STOs, security token offerings, and also for registrations for licensing. For example, a lot of exchanges are applying for licenses in Singapore. Right now, it's not needed, but pretty soon, crypto exchanges would need a license to operate in Singapore as well. So I'm well known around the world at various conferences for giving legal, regulatory, and compliance updates. We have consulted with a few governments around the world as well. And so we can give general advice on all these things.
Why did you decide to share your ideas and experience, huge experience, in Yerevan first, then in Moscow second?
Okay, so I've been speaking in many conferences, and I have actually spoken at a couple of events from Sergey for Blockchain Live. He spoke in April this year at his event in Singapore, and last year I was also invited for his St. Petersburg event. For the Yerevan event, it's the first time the event organizers got in touch with me, and I agreed to go over there. We have, of course, a lot of friends in the CIS areas, and it's the first time I'll be going to Yerevan, first time in Armenia, so that's going to be an interesting experience. And I enjoyed the time in Moscow the last time I went to Russia. That was in 2017 when I was speaking at a Crypto Bazaar Moscow event. That was another event that I attended long ago. Yeah.
Yeah, we all remember these events in 2017, Crypto Bazaar and St. Petersburg Blockchain Live, where that was very, very nice, very fun. So, Malcolm, what topics and issues specifically will you be speaking about in Yerevan and Moscow?
As with most of the conferences, I typically speak about regulatory, legal, compliance updates around the world. The landscape in the entire ICO market it has been changing very rapidly, not only in the legal and regulatory environment, but also in the funding in terms of how investors approach things, how people look at the crypto markets. It's a very very quickly evolving landscape. So I think every 3 to 6 months, there are major shifts. For example, now we are in the IEO craze, right? The IEO craze started like in around April, May this year. And before that, hardly anybody was doing IEOs, although we were already advising clients to do that about a year ago. And if you look at 2017, there was so much retail hype, a lot of consumer interest, a lot of retail interest. Then in 2018, a lot of funds, a lot of institutional investors came into the space. So from hardly any investments in the space in 2017, suddenly in 2018, over 50% of the investments in the crypto space came from funds and institutions. So the people who are looking into this space have been evolving. And it's necessary for investors, it's necessary for the retail people to understand what the landscape is like, what the offerings are like, what's the trend moving towards, and of course, which country has made it legal, which has made it illegal, and what are required in terms of all the requirements. Now, for example, this morning I was just speaking with someone from a top international firm from China. They have like over 1,000 lawyers, and they were being asked by a client to advise them on which jurisdiction to choose, because that's something very interesting as well. Since 2017, I've been meeting people from all over the world, trying to pick the best country to be in, the best country to launch their projects from. And so it's very important to know these answers, to know which countries have what kind of laws and what is required, and what's fashionable, what's helpful for the business, what the authorities will regard in terms of what's able to be done, what's not able to be done. And the crypto industry is very close to the securities industry, and every country has different securities laws. Similarly, in the crypto industry, every country has different approaches and different laws with regards to crypto. Another interesting thing, for example, in decades ago, Singapore, Hong Kong, and Malaysia came out from the British rule, and all were using common law, all had the same law. And today, Singapore has one position for crypto, Malaysia has another position for crypto, Hong Kong has another position for crypto. 2 years ago, none of these countries had any position, right? But now all three have diverged, even with the same common law roots, the same basic law in effect. Now in Malaysia, all digital assets are considered securities, which is the first time any government in the world has done that. In Singapore, pretty much everything is okay. You can go ahead as long as it's not a security. And in Hong Kong, it's a bit unclear. There are certain rules with regards to security tokens, and now advisors would need to get a capital market services license as well in order to advise on these. So it's very interesting that every country is approaching it differently.
Well, from your viewpoint as an experienced insider, what are the main trends? What are the main trends in industry?
The blockchain industry has been struggling with the use cases, right? So as most investors would know, the top two categories of performance have been protocols and exchanges. And it's very interesting that the super exchange now is Binance, and they are moving into everything. They are going into stable coins. They are promoting their own token as a gateway coin. They are leading the charge with IEOs, with launch pads. They are trying to get fiat licenses in many countries. They are even trying to get banking licenses in some countries. So that's pretty interesting, right? Another trend has been that there have been a lot of protocols. So a lot of these protocols have been trying over the last couple of years to build out their ecosystems. At the start in 2017, 2016, the only protocol with a smart contract was, of course, Ethereum, right? At the end of 2017, I think 99% of the projects were using ERC20 tokens. Right now, I think that percentage has dropped tremendously. I think it's something closer to 60, 70% right now. So more and more entrants are coming in with different protocols. And over the last 2 years, the successful protocols have been launching projects that have been successful using their protocols. So that's something that is still in struggle. What we see, a lot of industry experts are predicting that just like in the internet, there will be a few giants that will grow out of this new industry. Right now, there are dozens of protocols fighting for space, for survival, for being the prominent main protocols. Ethereum has had some challenges over the last few months. They delayed the launch of Casper, changing to the proof of stake networks. There are more proofs coming up. Proof of work was, of course, the dominant protocol before, and now proof of stake protocols are coming into effect. Delegated proof of stakes as well. So there are more and more proofs coming in. Then, of course, there are competing technologies like Hedera Hashgraph has come in. That's still a very, very interesting space because they claim that they can challenge the entire blockchain network and use a better technology that is competing with it. So I liken this to, let's say, about a decade or two ago, when the whole media industry was moving away from DVDs, right? So after DVDs, there were 4 or 5 competing standards around the world. Different manufacturers had different standards. Now, of course, we all know in the end, Blu-ray won, right? So now, so there are Blu-ray players, but back then, about 10, 20 years ago, there were so many competing standards, and there was no one dominant thing. So that's what I see happening in this space. Over the next few years, the protocols are going to keep battling it out, and whoever can get the best mass adoption projects will probably do very well. And of course, probably what we see right now as the leaders are not going to be the leaders in 5 years, not going to be the leaders in 10 years. For those who have been following the space, if you look at the top 10 or top 20 projects in terms of market cap over the last 3 to 4 years, everyone has been changing, right? The list has been changing like crazy. If you go back and look like a few years ago, the top 10 may have disappeared already, or they may be way below in the teens or over 100 places now. And new projects are constantly coming up. So it's a constant fight for the survival at the top. But the interesting thing is that I'm firmly of the belief that this is a growing space. We are now at about 260 billion market cap in total. The top market cap in terms of the whole industry was 830 B about 1.5 years ago at the end of January 2018. But I think that the digital asset space is going to be at least 10 to 100 trillion, which means we have at least 50 to 500 times to go. So if we are really right at the start of this entire industry, there's still a lot of space to go into.
Well, I like this great comparison between DVD formats and so on with our today's trends in crypto industry. So I'll take it and we'll use it from your permission. And finally, Malcolm, whom do you recommend to visit ChainPoint 19 conference in Yerevan and then Blockchain Live conference in Moscow? What type of person would most benefit from attending these conferences?
These conferences will be very interesting in terms of listening to experts. The panel lists, the keynote speaker list will be very strong, as always. So that's one interesting thing about the conferences. Over the last couple of years, I've spoken at about 60, 70 different conferences around the world, practically once every 1 or 2 weeks. And what I see coming in the space is that there are more and more experts coming in. So when I first wrote this book, I couldn't find anything in the industry when I first learned about it a couple of years ago. But over the last couple of years, more and more people know more about the space, and the level of knowledge and the depth of knowledge has increased a lot. So retail investors will be very interested in coming to learn more about projects and upcoming trends and about more news about the industry. And even people in the industry would benefit from coming because they will learn more about the relevant projects that are showcasing, as well as hearing from experts and from networking with industry. It's very important to network because it's still a very new industry, and knowing the thought leaders, the key opinion leaders is important because they can see what's happening all over the world and the developing global trends. So learning more about the industry will help everyone involved.
So, ladies and gentlemen, if you find it useful for your business, or perhaps you're interested how to do ICO and ITO in Singapore, or want to meet Malcolm Tan personally, please attend ChainPoint conference in Yerevan, Armenia, October 14 and 15, and then Blockchain Live Europe, Moscow, Russia, October 16 and 17. Use your promo codes Romanenko at CP19 for a 20% discount in Yerevan, and Romanenko from the little letter for 10% discount also written below. And by the way, we can also meet with you at Human to IT conference in Minsk, Belarus on October 5th, at CG conference in Kyiv, Ukraine in October 10th and 11th, and Georgia iGig and Affiliate conference on October 18 in Tbilisi, Georgia, and of course in Satoshi Invest Summit, and celebrating 11th Bitcoin My Paper birthday anniversary at October 30th and Thursday in Georgia. Visit cryptomc.com and find your discount promo codes there, and subscribe on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. Stay tuned for next speaker's interview. Malcolm Tan, Gravitas International, the author of the book How to Do ICO and ITO in Singapore. Eugene Romanenko over here. Thank you for watching. See you in October 14 and 15 in Yerevan, and October 16 and 17 in Moscow, Russia. Stay tuned. Stay crypto, and thank you, Malcolm.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.